Good evening. Thank you all for coming out just to join us this evening, kind of talk about the opportunity that is here in front of us with this development, to have some questions answered, to find out information about questions that have already been answered. Just give you a quick lay of the land of what's going to happen tonight. We have called this meeting, it's a little unorthodox just because typically this point of the process happens, the second or third step after a developer has chosen, selected their property, they've put in zoning applications, have given their intentions to the city. We don't currently have the zoning applications right now, but what we wanted to do is get ahead of the process because this is such a large impact to our community and our residents have questions. We want to bring y'all to the table at the onset so that we can hear feedback, we can hear concerns, we can hear opportunities, and make sure that we include those items in the process moving forward. So we have our master developer, legacy development, as well as officials from Perfect Game here tonight that are going to give y'all some information on what their plans are. Before we finalize the site plans, the developer would like to hear thoughts, hear questions, answer questions, and provide information to you guys. Then we're going to incorporate those information that we received into their site plans to then present as our final plan. This is only the first step of many, many more to come. And if any of y'all keep up with our council meetings, at our last council meeting, we talked about the development process, how this process works, and at what point the public has the opportunity to insert into that, to have their feedback, their input heard, to have questions answered, to request changes, and really understand what's going on. This is one of those options, and we'll have many, many more of those as we get through planning and zoning, as we get through council, as we have town halls, as we have design meetings. So I really first would like to thank you for coming and being here and just taking time to find out more. We're going to start by hearing from Ashley Lumpkin, our Executive Director of Development Services. She'll talk to you about some of the really main concerns that our residents have brought in about transportation, about mobility through the city, some other areas that we know is a focus and we want to address, answer any questions. Then we will turn it over to Legacy Development. They will show you some renderings of the site, talk about the site plan. And we've had many, dozens and dozens of questions that have already been given to us. We've incorporated all of those into this presentation to make sure that we answer what we've already received. Then we'll have a question and answer for any additional questions you may have. Also, for those of you who were in the lobby early on, if you fill out the sign-in form and include your email, we will send you updates to our project page, which anytime we provide information or updates to this, you'll get an alert letting you know that we've added some information for you. Also, the recording of tonight's meeting, as well as the presentation, and the questions, comments, and FAQs that we compile from tonight will be available on the website following this meeting also. And at the end of the meeting, I'll give you the web address and all the details on how to find that information. So I'd like to introduce Ashley Lumpkin. She's with City of Hutto, and she's going to get us started.
All right, so let me just get into a little bit of this. Really quick, one of the first things that we heard about was the traffic, because obviously we have a lot of people coming to the City of Hutto with this project. A few things you need to understand is that we are looking at our bond program, and we're looking at having County Road 132 as an overpass on 79. So we're looking at having full access. We understand that's going to be a little bit different than what we have right now in the City of Hutto, and it's a little bit further east. But knowing this project coming in, we're looking at moving traffic a little bit better on our east side, and also getting full access over the railroad, so you're no longer stuck at that rail line. And one thing that we're also looking at is partnering with the County of Williamson County, and getting 132 all the way up to Chandler and all the way down to 1660. So that's going to be a main thoroughfare through the city at this point. Then from there, 1660 and 973 are also slated to be widened. So you'll also be able to get out of the city, and all of the traffic coming in just for this development will be able to take 1660 south to 973, straight out to 130, or even just to the airport. So we have that exit as well. So you have Chandler to the north, you have 973 to the southeast, and then I'm sure you're all aware of the County Southeast Loop project, which comes in from 130 on the west side, which will also help alleviate some of the traffic concerns. One thing I do want to point out, these are very preliminary, they're draft. We do not yet have a zoning application. This is really legacy going above and beyond and trying to get out to the residents of the city to make sure that we have your input on this development. So what you see here is the proposed overpass site. It may be modified slightly. We do have an encore easement to deal with. I'm sure if you've driven over there, you know about the encore easement. And we also have 2 separate gas lines that we have to work with. So a lot of this is still in flux because we have to get the designs and we still have to go through approval processes as a city. But this is pretty much where we think it's going to go, and it's going to follow the transportation master plan that we've seen in our on our website, and then you'll see it again probably linked on this project website. So definitely take a look at that, see what our overall transportation plan is. I know traffic's going to be a concern for the amount of visitors that we're going to have. So it's not just going to be focused on 79. We are going to have multiple ways in and out of this site and in and out of Hutto in general in the next few years because we know we're growing explosively. Other than that, we've spent several weeks with Legacy trying to go over how to mitigate some of the concerns. I know that some council members have actually gone out and met with some of the residents, and we started to look at how to mitigate the concerns in advance of a zoning application coming in. How do we look at the buffering from the existing residences? How do we look at the lighting and how 24 ball fields coming in on the east side, how does that affect? We all see what how high school looks like when it's one football game. What does it look like when 24 fields are lit up? So that's one thing that we're going to try to mitigate. I think when you see the presentation, you'll be pleasantly surprised. There's certainly some surprises in this because I'm not in the baseball game. I'm not playing softball, baseball, anything like that. So I think you'll be surprised, but certainly want to have your input. We're going to come back to you. We want you to have input in this process. So certainly sign up for that project email so that we can get you the information and get you all the updates. This is not the last step for any input by any means. We still have to go through the full zoning process. We're going to go through the platting. We have a massive development process that has to happen. But knowing that this has been out there, it was announced, we had a developer not able to do what we needed them to do, and now we have a developer who can do all the things that we needed them to do. We want to make sure that we're getting out in front of you and giving you a chance to have your input. So with that, I can turn it back over to you, Emily.
Sure.
If you'd like.
Great.
Again, I want to remind folks that this is because we are early in the process, and as Ashley mentioned, Legacy going, just coming to the table and talking where they're at. This is very high level. We may have some very specific questions that we don't have answers to yet, but they're important questions. So if y'all want to take notes or keep those in mind when we get to that point in the process, you can bring those to us. You can also email them to us, and we've got many, many more steps in this. I'd like to ask Scott Morris to come up with Legacy Development. He'll go over the renderings, talk about the process, give you a little more information.
All right, well, appreciate the introduction on behalf of the folks at the city, Perkins, Odell, SFM. Can you guys hear me okay now? And Legacy, I want to thank you for coming out this evening. We think this will be, we hope this will be invaluable input that we can use to inform our master plan. My name is Scott Morris. I'm with Clear Workshop out of Atlanta. We're planners and architects, and as already been mentioned, and as you'll see in the upcoming slide, we're very early in the process, and we're definitely looking to focus on hearing what you guys have to say today as opposed to unveiling already cooked master plan. We'll show you where we are, but we'll get to that in just a second. So this is the proposed agenda for the evening. We're really focused on the last block there. It's the general discussion section. I think the format is we're going to try to hold questions till the end, just allow us to get through everything. But the first 4 blocks are really set up just to give you some talking points, to give you a sense of where we are with the project. So we'll start with the process, and that's just an overview of where we are. We'll give you some details on the project as it's starting to shape up. We'll tell you a little bit about the pieces and parts that are planned to go into the master plan. We'll show you just a few quick diagrams you see up here, some initial thinking for you guys to react to. And then again, we're really here just to hear what you guys have to say. So this is a general timeline or a sequence of events for our typical master planning process. We always start with a vision and a program. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But then we quickly get into information gathering, and that's kind of why we're here tonight. We do a lot of research, try to understand the communities that we're infusing with these developments, and we want to hear back from you, because obviously you know more about your community than we do. Then we'll look at a series of planning alternatives, and this will probably be part of a series that Jim and his team will set up where we come in and we can talk about the advantages and disadvantages of these alternatives, also allow you to provide input. Then we start to develop the master plan over a series of months, and then we get to component designs, because the master plan is really just a map of all the pieces and parts. And so that's really where the road hits the road at the end, of how things look and feel and how they're organized. So you're probably familiar with the site, but if not, here's an aerial view of it. The site is to the north of 79 is highlighted in yellow, or outlined in yellow. It's bounded by basically the car dealership on the east, Liver Loop on the north side, 79 on the south side, and then the residential community and Cottonwood Creek on the west side. So talk a little bit about what's going in the plan, master plan. There's really 5 major components that make up the master plan. The main 2 are sports and retail. So the sports facility you already heard a lot about. It's currently planned to be 24 fields that will be configured in a diagram you'll see here in a second. These are full-size fields for youth baseball. Supporting that, we've got a large retail component or program that we're putting in here that will bring market and Main Street retail to the community. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. Entertainment, including bars, restaurants, music venues, and things like that. There's a small residential component to this as well. And then an event center, which people have described as a community center or convention center, but it's really focused on sports to support the Perfect Game program. So this next series of slides will just kind of give you a feel for the different components that are going in there and the aspirations for how it will be configured. The retail, as we see it, is primarily a Main Street retail configuration. So retail on the bottom and then some residential or commercial on the top. It'll be likely linear in nature. It'll have things, entertainment along the retail Main Street, but it's intended to be really focused on local and small format retail. It's not big box retail, so I think it'll fit really nicely in your community. Obviously, the other big component here that we've been talking about is the sports complex. As I mentioned, there's 24 fields planned in a very similar configuration to what you see in that upper left-hand slide. If you can imagine 6 of those kind of back to back, that's the magnitude of the area that we're allocating for the sports program. These are Little League up to high school level teams that will be coming in, and you've seen the promo that's the impact that will have on the community. There's an entertainment component to what we're doing, which would include, as I mentioned, music and entertainment, bars, restaurants, and things like that. You see on this slide here, event lawns and things like that. It's intended to be not just a draw for sports tourism, but also an amenity to the local community. So we're hoping that this will hit the ring bell with you guys as far as what you think this community would like to see. There is a small residential component to this. It's not single family. It would be multifamily apartments, garden apartments, and it's not a big piece of the program, but there's a small area next to where you've got your current neighborhoods that we can put these components in. We'll talk more about that when we get to questions and answers. And then the last component I want to talk about was the sports complex. So the convention center or sports complex is intended to have basketball and volleyball venues come in, and so it's going to be configured similar to the way you see in these images. We have meeting space for things like auto shows and boat shows to come in, and so that's a key component to the overall plan as well. So, as we mentioned before, we're very early in the process. We don't really have a plan to unveil tonight. I hope you don't leave disappointed, but there's really 5 things that we took away from the community input that came out from the last master plan exercise that went on. We'll show you those in a minute. As mentioned, there's about 50 items that were listed and given to us. There's really 5 categories that they all fall into. The main concern was traffic, and rightfully so. We're bringing in a lot of people. And so thinking through the road configuration is going to be really important. Where the site is accessed, how you get people out of there so they're not driving through your neighborhoods, I think is important. So we're going to try to address that this evening. Another concern was water management. There was questions about where's the domestic water coming from, where's the storm water going to, and so we'll try to address that. We'll get to questions and answers. Obviously, and rightfully so, there's concern about the proximity of the ball fields to the neighborhoods. And so how do we screen the ball fields, the light, any noise, music, anything associated with ball fields from the houses that back up to the ball fields? And so that's something we'll take into consideration. There's a lot of questions about ballpark operations, hours of operations, access, those kinds of things. Urban Games here to address those. We'll get to questions and answers. And then the last kind of big category of questions or concerns was construction related. And inevitably, it will be disruptive because it's such a big site. So there will be construction going on for months and months that will have to be planned carefully so that it doesn't interrupt your daily lives. So 2 diagrams to talk over quickly to set the stage for the conversation we're about to have. Based on that feedback and based on some initial input from the city, we're proposing a road system, a circulation system similar to the one you see on the screen and the one that's printed out. Our current concept is that the main access point to the development is off of 79 on the south, and that's represented by the kind of the dark brown road there, and it runs north-south. We think that there's probably an east-west main road that will serve as the main street, so that's where most of the retail will be located. Close enough to 79, we've got visibility far enough to where you can buffer it from the noise of 79. Then there'll be a few service roads that allow us to get people in and out of the development without driving through the neighborhoods. And those are the blue streets you see up there. So one would connect 79 up to Limmer Loop. And that one could be a 1 lane in each direction. And it allows people to get out of the site going north as opposed to everybody having to go back to 79. So imagine a bunch of games get out at the same time. Having options is probably a good thing. Then we are showing a service road east-west that parallels 79. We think that's also a good thing to get options on getting in and out of that community. And then the last series of roads are the green roads, which are kind of residential roads, which could link to your existing neighborhoods to allow you easy access from those neighborhoods into this new development if that's something that you wanted to entertain. The series of pictures off to the right are indicative of the kind of the character of these streets. And so the one at the top is kind of the Main Street image where we have 1 lane in each direction, we have parking off to the sides, and then you have retail underneath residential or commercial office. The brown one going north-south is more of a boulevard, so it's probably tree line, 2 lanes in both directions for the turn lane. And then the green roads are your residential roads, and those are more like what you see at the bottom there. So we have tree-lined streets, tighter streets, probably 1 lane in each direction. As far as the way the program would lay out, we've zoned it based on proximity to 79 and trying to honor the buffer and buffering the community. The areas you see in green are intended to be landscape buffers for water retention and water management areas to allow the Again, a buffer between the program we're proposing and the existing communities and the I-79 or US 79. The area in peak would be concentrated retail, so that's where most of the Main Street activity would take place down there, including all the way to 79. And then the orange in the middle you see there, that's intended to be the zone for the convention center component. So the event center or the sporting indoor complex that we've been talking about would take place there. And then the little blue chevron up there at the top would be the residential. So it's adjacent to your existing neighborhoods, and it's a nice kind of scale mitigation between what we're talking about in the way of retail and the neighborhood is there. So I know I went fairly quickly, but I hope that provided enough information for us to have a good constructive conversation about your concerns and your ideas. I think the way we're going to do this is we'll have some general discussion, and then we're going to bring up all the experts that can answer all your questions, and you can have one-on-one conversations with them after we have a general discussion about concerns about what was presented. Is that right? How are you?
From here, we're just going to hear questions, talk a little about the topics that have been brought up to date, go through some of those areas. Also, I want to mention that in addition to our developers, Perfect Game, the folks that are here, we do have several council members here. So when we do get to that one-on-one point, if you'd like any conversations with those folks, Mike Snyder is here right in the front. Mike, if you want to raise your hand. Peter Gordon is right here behind him. Doug Gall, our mayor, is in the back. Patty Martinez, I saw her somewhere. There she is. So keep in mind, we've got all sorts of, wait, who did I miss? Oh, there you are, Tanner. Sorry. I didn't see you in the corner back there. Tanner Rose also is back here. So I want to point out that in addition to the developers, the folks that are building and bringing this in, we have city administration, we have council here for you to talk to, bring your concerns to, ask questions, just give us any of your feedback, and we'll take all of that. Again, reminder, the information that we are asked this evening, we will be taking notes, we will compile all of this into a document that will be available on the website that you can go back and look at and get information as we move along.
Open it up to questions. After we take some of the questions, and we can break out the individual. We're going to have groups that will stick around afterwards. We're going to be available for questions, both staff, developer, Perfect Game representatives, the architects. We're all going to be here. But if you want to ask a few questions, we may get a few questions out for the entire group that may answer a question for everybody. So it'll help guide whatever questions you may have during the one-on-one. So if there are any questions you want to throw up, if we can't answer it, we'll get the appropriate person up here, the expert, to answer that question.
Yes, I did that, but sorry. I didn't mean to step on you. Go ahead.
I just wanted to make a little point of clarification. A lot of these questions were submitted with the initial plan.
Yes.
Avenue of Champions and that blue service road that goes from Mager to Limmer Loop are the same thing. They had a name for it on the original plan.
No, they're not the same thing anymore. We can discuss that a little bit further.
Okay.
Great, thank you. I had a quick question. So in talking about this earlier, I know that transportation obviously a big topic, and some of those transportation questions are outside the scope of the city administration and the developer and Perfect Game. So I was just curious about what level of conversation has been had between the county and other entities that might be involved in that transportation.
I think what we have from the city manager is that he's been meeting with all of the area representatives. So we know the Southeast Loop. It's been a hard sell, I think, for the city of Hutto to really want the Southeast Loop because what it's been dubbed is the Hutto bypass. And of course, we don't want it to be dubbed as that because we have a lot of things going on here. But at the same time, we know it's going to move a massive amount of traffic. So the city of Hutto has been involved with Williamson County on that project, as well as Campo on 1660 and TxDOT, sorry, Campo and TxDOT, 1660, 973, and the widening of those two roadways, and then also back County on the bond project, that we're looking at the overpass, and then their involvement on 132 being extended from 1660 all the way north to Chandler.
So is there any contingencies? I know the bond election is coming up, right, road bond consulting design. And depending on what passes and what doesn't pass, does any of that impact the decisions you're gonna make? For example, those bonds that you just talked about don't pass, how does that impact your proposal?
I think at this point, with the bond program that Williamson County has, it doesn't impact the future of this development or really the city of Hutto. There's a few small areas where we would need help with, or we would ask for help with, but certainly we will be able to secure the funding, knowing that the voters should come out in massive success for our own bond program. So where those areas on 132 need to be connected, I think we'll be able to handle that just fine. And then for the southeast loop, I think we have enough connectivity as long as we're continuing to work with Williamson County and TxDOT to make sure that we're continuing to look at the connectivity. We're not going to have, I don't think, 700,000 visitors day one of the opening. It's going to be a longer process, but we know that what we have coming, and so we're talking to all of our, everybody who would be a stakeholder in the transportation program for Williamson County on the east side in general, to make sure that we've got everybody on the same one.
Okay, thank you.
So to make things, is this one on?
Yes,
Right?
it's on.
Okay. To make things, so everybody can hear, can you hear me about that? Doesn't sound like it's on.
It doesn't sound
You're
like
just
it's on.
loud.
Just talk louder, guys, it's okay.
Because I know some people aren't loud enough in asking the questions, so we want to probably, if you either speak real loud or we need to probably use a mic to make sure everybody can hear. So that one's, I guess when I went to that one, this one went off.
I will say that transportation in general, and we'll answer individual questions, but that is going to be probably the single most predominant conversation we have moving forward.
Is it on now?
I'm curious about what the safety plan is during the construction process for the families that take their children to Hutto Elementary, and then also Cottonwood Creek and Durango starts. What is the safety plan for those people? Where are the trucks coming in?
And we probably have somebody from the developer up here as well, but again, the site, we've got a general layout of the site. All that is not decided at this point yet. That's why we're having this initial, hey, this is what we're looking at. We're getting your questions. That's a question that we're going to write down. We'll make sure that those are addressed, in the future by the developer. But since we don't have the exact development laid out, obviously we don't have that level of detail at this point.
Paul?
Any discussion about connecting to Chandler off your backside from the 133 as using it as a major thoroughfare? It's huge.
I think the transportation plan actually calls for about a 132 to 1660, almost in the same area where 1660 intersects with Chandler right now, except for instead of that massive S curve, it's going to come down a little bit closer into the 132 connection. That's what we're looking at right now, but if you want to check the project page, we can get the transportation master plan that was approved several years ago by council.
Well, I noticed on his development plan, he showed a spur that looked like it was taken off that direction. Was that their intent, what they were showing?
Is the transportation master plan, because there's going to be a little bit of a 132, a little bit of a jog to where it moves further north through the Highlands North subdivision, but we've already secured the right of way there as well. There was another question.
Did you have a question?
Somebody.
I did, yeah.
So are you going to parallel the roads with the construction of this facility at all? Like, we're going to have a facility and then the roads? Or what does that look like? We're going to try to parallel them at the same time so that we can minimize?
The overpass is going to be done around the same time as substantial completion, I believe, of Perfect Game. So that will be there. We will have full access over 79. Some of the other, we're going to have some timing based on when, that's a much larger project from 1660 South all the way to Chandler Road on the north side. I think those are going to be a lot longer. As mentioned, the bond program, if that is not for some reason approved, I think that's going to be a longer term program. We can't have everything open on day one. That would give us about 18 months to get everything done. And how to move fast, but I don't think we can manage that.
So then the other piece of that is part of Mager Lane is owned by the county. And I guess we're going to own that now, but it's going to be annexed or somebody's going to own it. That's really a one-lane road. What will happen there? Because we already have, there's a trucking facility there that does storage. That road is so tore up, it doesn't handle cars both ways. So what's the plan for that there?
The trucking facility, I believe, if you look at this map, may actually be part of the eminent domain process. And I don't want to overspeak on that, but I believe
the
So the
storage
question
lot.
really is, what about that one, that's a one lane?
That would all have to be determined in the transportation impact analysis, and the traffic impact analysis for the development overall, and then all the other developments in the area. I believe we already have some developments or improvements that are slated in our CIP for Mager
Part of
Lane.
that section that,
Mhm.
the Baker Lane that you talked about is that hash mark on the bottom part there.
Okay.
It
That
can't
part
handle
there
the traffic.
is part of it.
Right, so
And then-
some of that is actually
and then
going
the
to
rest of that
end
maybe goes away.
up, we're not going to go past Kate's Way. There's going to be other, we're looking at transportation as a whole and holistically on the east side past 1660, just to make sure that we're creating a better transportation. Because really, traffic flow pattern on the north and the south side at this point. We know that we have to contend with that railway, but it's going to be something that we're looking at as a staff, and then also with the developers and the engineers to make sure that we're moving traffic efficiently as possible, but then also as safely as possible, knowing that we're connecting this into downtown. So this has to be a very pedestrian-oriented development as well.
And certainly specific to the plan, the site plan itself, we will be doing traffic analysis to look at that. Obviously, we don't want a one-lane road both ways going into a facility that is expected, to have 25,000.
Well, it's not really a one road.
Right.
It's a two-lane.
It's a two-lane.
It can't handle any more traffic.
Correct.
And so, and I don't honestly know at this point in the planning process of it, if we think that there's even any main connections from this development coming from Mager. I think they're all gonna come from the larger roads that can already handle the capacity that we're looking at needing.
But certainly that'll be taken into consideration.
Absolutely, no.
Yes, yes.
Regardless, the road needs to be fixed. I don't know if it's gonna be something that we're gonna be adding more traffic to.
And just to add perspective, and I'll be right with you, sir, keep in mind as we think through this project, which is an incredibly exciting project, there's a lot of exciting elements to it. This is not a 24-month construction period for this entire project. This is going to be a project that will accumulate over years. It could have a 7 to 10 year build out on the entire project. It could happen a little bit quicker than that, but I don't want everybody to think that we've got an opening day set for a tournament of Memorial Day 2021 and that you're going to have every bit of retail developed, all of the hotels, every attraction. These things are going to take time, and so it's not going to be a shock to the system that all of a sudden one day there's going to be this giant development. So it's going to take a little bit of time.
So then we have your commitment for the next 7 to 10 years that you're going to be here with us as part of this process.
Oh, he's one of us. He's with the city of Idaho. He's one of us. You're not getting.
He works for the city, we won't let him leave.
I was going to say, you're going to have to ask my boss, but I would say yes.
I've been here 13 years, I'm not going
Let's not
anywhere.
advertise between 7 to 10 years of construction. Better.
I think it's definitely going to be this longer term process where you've seen, I think, the changes in Hutto from 7 to 10 years ago, and you've seen where we've gone. I think we're getting a little bit more robust in our CIP process and our bond programming. And what we're trying to do as a city, we've certainly had exponential growth. I think since 2010, we've had 92% growth rate in the city. So we're certainly having to have a little bit more forethought, and I think this development is one of those that we're having to have a lot of forethought on, to have that 7 to 10 year outlook on how does this affect the city of Hutto. I mean, we have about 9,500 acres that we don't have yet developed on the east side, and that's one thing that we're not only focusing on this, but staff is also looking at a master development plan, really a land use plan for the 9,500 acres that will be coming just after this to look at what else happens in the city and how do we have this function with this amount of density and the growth, so that we don't make the same unfortunate mistakes that may have been happening on the west side of Williamson County without the connectivity. But it's certainly something, while this is just one development, staff is looking at the entirety of our ETJ on the east side just to make sure that we're getting it right. And so we will be asking for a lot more input on the overall master plan, not just this development.
Do you have a question on this?
When is construction supposed to begin, and how long? If you said it's not all going to happen at one time, how long are we going to have to endure the construction as residents of Clark's Crossing?
I believe at least for what we know now, I'm thinking probably spring timeframe, you'll probably start to see dirt moving. I know that we're anxious to get on that because we do have that May 2021 timeframe that we want to see the fields open. Certainly it's going to be under construction, similar to how you see the Home Depot Hanson's Corner. It looked like nothing had happened for several years, and now we finally got Mod Pizza and a few others coming in. So there's going to be some times where you will see retail buildings pop up in the middle of something. But I'm hoping that because we have 132 and the overpass and 79 and Limmer, we're going to be able to reduce the construction traffic, at least for the residents, and we'll be able to kind of circle around a little bit more than come through the main parts of Hutto.
But I mean, it's point well taken, is that the construction's got to be managed. The new master developer that we have partnered with is somebody that we're very, very excited to be partnered with. They do this all over the country. They've done a lot of major projects. They know what they're doing. And they're in the room and they hear your questions. That is something, they're going to be with us for the long haul in this project, and this won't be the only time you see them. And so, point well taken, that we understand that it's a large site, and it sounds like construction over a 7 to 10 year period is a lot. A lot of that construction is going to be internal to the site that you're not even going to, it's not going to affect you whatsoever. It's going to be contained within the site. There are going to be things that do affect surrounding areas, but I think that the construction process in your minds may be a little bit different than what happens.
Well, we live like literally on the edge of Morningstar. And there it is. So I think it affects us more than a lot of people. But
she and I are on the same page because we live across the street from each other. I'll stand up briefly. This road right here, according to this diagram, is adjoining our property. I know traffic's an issue to the people that live in the community. I want to know what's going on there because I was told by 2 city employees that that's a closed road, but I was told by him that it's going to be for traffic to get in and out. So now it's an accessible road for traffic, and that's adjoining my property.
Okay.
That's made sound from the start to that baseball game right there. I coached many, many years of baseball now, since my son was in kindergarten until he graduated high school. I know what baseball games do. I know when they're tied, they play the score. We're actually going to watch the Astros right now.
They were at 2-0 like you nuts.
Yeah, but it's going to be noisy. I know what I do when my son's playing baseball. And I probably know a lot of other fathers do and mothers do when their sons are playing baseball or their daughters are playing softball. They get loud. They get rowdy. Well, if them games are tied, they get tired. We'll see how that is. Safety is a nightmare. Are these roads going to be private or city? You can answer that later. I don't care. I'm throwing some things at you because
Sure.
I was really hoping Mr. Jones was going to be here. Because I was kind of wanting the 3 of us to kind of get together, even Mr. Gall, and we just kind of visit a little bit. Because I've got 3 hours worth of conversation, but I don't want to tire everybody up. But there's citizens here that also have issues. I am concerned if this is private or public. And because when it was the last one, they didn't know. I'm extremely concerned about that road. And I'm extremely concerned where our road ends. Everybody thinks it's a cul-de-sac. It's not. It's a road with a circle because the city won't let us have our front yards. And then there's pasture and there's project expansion. So I don't want a bunch
To
of...
answer your question, Ron?
Yes, sir.
Discussions that we've had with the developers here correctly, is the road that you're looking at coming off, extending on Mager and then extending from Mager up to Limmer Loop.
Yes, sir.
Are going to look like this out here in front of the co-op. You'll have a sidewalk, you'll have a boulevard, and then you'll have another sidewalk, and you got a buffer area before you get to the baseball game.
Okay.
And then along that whole, along the side where the residents are, is we're looking at a fence going up all along there, along that side. So you won't have direct access from the road to that neighborhood. Am I correct in that?
A fence, is that a sound attenuator or a chain link fence?
A fence, a permanent fence,
It'd be
similar
masonry.
similar to what's behind the co-op, or behind the city hall here.
So not like a sound attenuator?
The fencing details and all that have to be, will have to be.
That's why, and honestly, and thank you, but I was hoping Mr. Jones so we could all have
The
some.
fencing, when it comes up in zoning, it'll have to meet our code, whatever our code for the city's fencing is.
Right, Ron, I think during this whole process, what we are looking at mitigating is going to be the light standards and also sound. We realize that that's going to be something that we have existing residences over there, so that's going to be something that I think is still up for discussion.
Right.
But I think it's a great point because it's not going to be chain link. I mean, it could be for security reasons once you get past 100 feet, but I think it's going to probably be fence creek, similar to what we have here. Height, I'm not sure yet. We haven't gotten there yet.
Between that road and us, like where these in
So,
it. So
Your
people
road will
can't
not-
come
your road will
from
not
on the
connect
street.
to
No, they would not be able to. There would be
No.
a hard stop just as there is today. Hard stop,
Well, but I mean, people will still come park wherever they can park and walk. If they have walking access,
they're gonna do that?
Most people, honestly, I think that are going to be coming to the Perfect Game are going to be there for a purpose, and they're going to be parking as close as possible because the amount of equipment that they have to hold. I think the only thing is with the amount of parking that we're going to have on site in general, it's not going to behoove them to park in an adjacent neighborhood to come walk a mile into the, it's going to be similar to, I would say, almost more of a domain style, where you're going to park and you're going to stay.
If they parked in the neighborhood, they would actually have to walk all the way down to the
Correct.
Limmer Loop or the Mayor.
Right, to actually access. There isn't going to.
Because there would be some
Yes.
sort of thing,
Right.
or
Correct.
something.
Going back a little earlier,
Correct.
construction parking. I'm a project superintendent for mechanical contractors. I know what people do in construction jobs. They park as close as they can so they can go to work, and they run up their truck during lunch and they go. We're hoping we don't see that here. And I know these are a lot of questions, it's preliminary, but I need y'all to hear everything that I'm hearing.
Well, and again, this is the perfect time to raise those things, because
Yes.
the people that are working on this project are in the room. And you always want to show conceptual drawings of anything you do, understanding that anytime you put something in writing, the perception is that's the way it's going to end up. And I just want to remind everybody that these are conceptual drawings right now. I think they're going to be relatively close to where we end up, but this is the time to give your input. There's some things that aren't going to be conceptual. There are going to be buffers between the neighborhood and the development. I mean, there are. Right now it shows the roads, and then there's an additional 100-foot buffer on the inside of that, buffering from the, now that could be bermed and landscaped. There are other options that we can have, but there's going to be a fairly significant buffer. As far as transportation arteries within the site, a great time to discuss that, because again, obviously none of these roads are built today.
Yes, sir.
And these things are open for discussion.
How are those roads gonna get built? How are the roads gonna get built?
With what money?
The developer has to build them?
The development and
Well, it's just like any other any other property we do right now. The developer will build the roads, but then they'll turn them over to the city. I mean, just in your neighborhood, all those roads are built by the developer, but then they turn them over to the city after they pass inspection, and then the city's is responsible for maintaining them. That's gonna be the exact same thing for your main roads. Now, the parking lots are not, but the roads in there all will be built by the developer and be turned over after they pass. They'll have to submit multiple inspections, and they're approved, and they'll become part of the city's roads, just like these roads out here in front of the co-op.
So I'm concerned about we talk about this being a new domain, and I look at the co-op with the signage, not historical at all. It doesn't look like Hutto at all. And yet there are 2-lane roads going in and out, and we're proposing hotels and high-rises and all these businesses. That's gonna be a traffic nightmare. So I just want some thought to go into all of this. It makes no sense to me, and I don't get it. I think we're just trying to build without worrying about how people are gonna live.
Yes, sir.
So, my name is Tim Martin. For anybody that might be curious, I live at pretty much the tip of that dark blue dot, or that arrow there that you see. It's pointing almost directly in my backyard. I want to preface the statement, number one, I have the utmost confidence, and I truly do, that the city is going to handle this right, simply because the magnitude of this project is one that cannot be glanced over. It's simply too visible to the public, to the private. This is not something that they can afford to go wrong with. This is not a small undertaking. What I want to speak to most specifically are the investors and the developers. What you don't see on that photograph, because it's not accurately labeled, is just on the left of that yellow line running north-south is Hutto Elementary School, which is currently at capacity. We do not have another school. The city cannot just immediately put another school up. And the infusion of multifamily dwellings into the neighborhood will almost immediately and assuredly double the per family capita of our children. That school will be overrun. It's already overrun with the housing developments that are already there. And I need you to consider, it's not that we want to have a place opportunities to shop or play. Nobody's really arguing about that. The opportunities to shop and have places to go to entertain ourselves, I've not heard a single person in here complain about that. But we're not looking at our quality of life. And I'm sorry, but I moved here because of the quality of my life. And I moved into that neighborhood because of the promise of that quality of life. And I come from an area, I was born and raised in an area where gentrification is real. And it hurts. And it destroys neighborhoods. And I'm telling you, I escaped that life. And that's why I'm here. And I have a fear that that will come upon us.
And I think to answer your question, one, we've got school board presidents sitting over there. I'm going to point you out. Thank you. Two, we have, from the very beginning.
We got another board member here too, so. And another sit down.
From the very beginning of this discussion, we've had statute cases. And so we've been, and that part of the bond that they recently passed is for additional elementary schools. So they are forward-looking. I mean, they've got the space out there where the new high school is. They've got
That's
the
right.
ready to go. So yeah,
It's all well and good. I'm not talking,
So
again,
they
I
are-
preface this by stating, because we've had this conversation
Yeah.
first, my confidence is not lost on the city or the government that's running. It's not. I want to impress upon the people the culture of this town, which is what we're all concerned with losing. That is taking away all of the fields my children currently run around and play in the neighborhood. You're blocking them all off. You're turning our neighborhoods that our children play in into an area where it's impacted by the simple volume of people itself. We know inherently crime will increase. That's simply the nature of the beast. To be naive of that is shallow. But our children, they roam free. They're safe. They feel safe. Our police have made that a safe neighborhood. If I'm not mistaken, they told us it's one of the safest in Hutto. It's great. You're injecting $1 billion worth of potential liability to my kids. And above all else, if I don't take care of this for my children, it is all lost. I don't care about me. I can go shop anywhere I want to shop. I can live in an apartment. I'm an adult. I got kids that need free roam. They need a school that can house them. They don't need to be overrun with everything that they got. They need to play and a closed-off baseball diamond that they can stare at but not play. I'm not. That's a generalized statement. I know that some of it's old, but I got to put it out there. You're not taking away a dirt field. You're taking away a community's neighborhood for 7 to 10 years, and that's upsetting. It's not. We can't stop it. I'm not telling you to go away. I'm simply asking everybody involved to be considerate of those of us that live here. And I don't mean occupy a home. We live here.
So going back to,
Hold on, Robin, I'm gonna let Mr. Owens over here ask his question.
So the residential area, will there be access, is that a road there on the west end of the residential area, or is that just a forward?
Over here?
No, yeah, right here. Is that a road going in between the two? I was
As
just
of right
concerned,
now.
making sure if that's gonna be residential, that they'll have access to be able to walk to that road. And on the previous plans, you had hotel conventions, and I'm not seeing anything on the maps that's going to be able to house the people that are coming in to visit.
It's multi-dwelling, so the residential portion would be above the potential.
No, I'm talking about hotels.
Yeah.
I'm talking about
The hotels will be in two places. One is attached to the convention center, and you remember as he did the slideshow, there was an orange block denoting essentially where the convention center will go. They will be attached to that, and there will also be some outpads for hotels that will have access to 79 as well.
And at the convention center, when you were showing pictures, it looked more like for basketball or volleyball tournaments, that type of stuff. In the previous slides we had, it was gonna be like a 13 or 15,000 convention center that could hold type of things like that. And I'm kind of really looking at, we have our high school graduations here in town.
We'll have good news, if that's what you want to do. It's going to be dual purpose. The floors, a lot of these, you can roll out the floors for tournaments, things like that, and you can transition from a basketball court to, say, doing a boat show, doing a convention. It will be multi-purpose.
Which stands that can retract that?
I'm sorry?
Stands. You can-
Yes, yes. That they most of the stands, and again, I'm not the developer, and I was just mentioning to Emily, man, I picked a bad time to walk through the room. But the majority of the stands are not permanent. They will be movable. There will be some element that will be permanent, but it will be a multi-purpose facility. The nice thing about it with the sports element to it, it will bring traffic. It will bring have another outlet for amateur sports, both for our residents, for our kids, and for those coming in to spend money and time in our community. So we plan on using it not just for the sports, but that'll be an element.
Now, will the hotel be going up at the same time as the baseball fields, or is the baseball fields and then all the other stuff coming in?
Man, I wish I knew the answer to
I'm
that.
just thinking
I
of
hope so.
traffic. You know, if we're gonna be bringing people in, and need a place to stay.
I hope
we're
so.
gonna go to Round Rock and
Exactly right. I mean, that's a great question. And again, we really wanted to give everybody an opportunity to ask questions and get an idea on the front end of this, knowing that some of these questions we simply can't answer yet. But it's a great time to ask them because, again, all the players in the room were taking note. And if I had my preference, I would love to at least have the convention center hotel done by the time the ball fields. Do I think that's realistic? Probably not. To be perfectly honest.
Terrence, it's also important to note that for hotel occupancy tax, that even on hotels that are outside of Hutto, if they are contracted with Perfect Game and staying there for the purpose of this event, that money will be routed correctly, so that that money doesn't stay out even if they are out while we're still building them. Yes, ma'am.
What is our plan from a safety perspective? Like, I think we're like the 10th safest city in the state of Texas. What's our plan so that we can maintain that with all this roads and traffic and things that come in that?
I'd hate to put the police chief on the spot, but he happens to be sitting on your row.
And he's happened to give a presentation to council recently on his plan for this.
Well, so the plan is, someone mentioned earlier, there's gonna be a lot of traffic. We're starting to need traffic, and we're asking for more officers so we can have officers assigned just to this area. It's gonna be a tourist area, officers that can respond just to this side of the city. We're looking at dividing our city into different districts now, instead of just north and south. We're looking at east and west, north and south. So we're adding additional officers, and we're creating traffic units. We're adding more officers to our street crime unit to respond to any other issues that or concerns that may happen.
So today I can run by myself and I have minimal protection with me, right? I didn't have to get away. Am I going to be able to do that in 3 years? Are we planning to keep this community? the way
Yes,
it is
ma'am,
today?
that's our plan. And right now, we're the second safest city, and with growth, I'm doing everything I can to maintain that.
Okay.
In
In the TV somewhere, I heard.
And I'm on TV on the
In addition, our voters recently passed a bond that is funding a new communications center for police that will allow us to expand our comms, our dispatch services, and start focusing on bringing all that in-house so we're not reliant on outside agencies to dispatch our police. That will reduce the amount of time it takes for police to respond. It also will allow us to have a higher number of contacts when police make contact with a resident, whether it be to stop by and say hi or to deal with a dispatch call, any of those. So we do have funding coming in for that to really revamp and look at all those safety and public safety aspects as well.
So I want to go back to where Mayor Gall said when this plan was brought to the dais. And I want to know how many members of the dais were actually involved in this plan. Because my understanding there are two, well, I know for sure one that wasn't involved in those and being denied access to these plans. And this is the first time to stand up.
I mean, as far as these exact plans here, this is the first time the whole council's seen these plans here with this new development.
So you said it was brought to the dais.
No, my comment was imperfect when we first, my comment was that I made was when we first started talking to Perfect Game to come to town, the ISD was, we had discussed with the ISD about how that would impact them in the future.
So what you're saying is every member of council has seen this plan? And
No.
given.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay. No, I'm just
No.
asking, have they
No, this is the first time I've seen it. I mean, this is,
So this information, because we have a new developer, many of you have heard that the developer did change in this process. So any of the information, the plans, the designs, the options that we have that we looked at the beginning of this process back in April when this first was unveiled, much of that has changed. Legacy is a much more renowned developer. They're larger. They've worked with much larger developments and projects. And looking at the site and looking at the players that were at the table, they wanted to and should, as any developer that's investing their own money, want to have control over what that is, and a new site comes out of that, a new plan comes out of that, completely new retail and hotel options and entertainment options. All of that has changed because it's a different concept than on the retail and the commercial side than we looked at in April. So this is, they've done this work in a month, just about weeks.
This is a week.
Weeks. This is done very quickly to pull this information together to bring you, and we have not sent this to council prior to today.
And to your point, ma'am, that's a good point about, how familiar with this particular planning council currently is, that type of thing at the beginning of this meeting. And I don't know if you were here when they started, but please keep in mind that as they move forward, all of these plans will still need to go to council. This property is not done yet. We're bringing them to you before that.
My concern is that there are council members who do not get access.
Our council members have access to all records and documents that they would like to receive. They receive updates regularly during executive session at council meetings. We have addressed this.
We've seen at this project.
Yes.
Since Legacy.
Yes.
They were in the executive room with us and looked over the term sheets with notice.
Thank you, Patty. However, tonight's meeting is to talk about the plans that we have in front of us, what we have moving forward, what information and feedback we can get from y'all or provide to you to make sure that this development is one that is held to a standard that meets our community values, that maintains our culture, and then provides for the economic benefit of our town, that helps reduce taxes, that brings in tourism and benefit, but still allows for us to maintain a small town feel that we want and have. That's the purpose of our meeting this evening, and I want to get us back to that. You are the next question, but I'm going to go right back here.
Fritz Park is on the west side of this development. How we are going to affect Fritz Park? Is Fritz Park going to be expanded because of the floodplain? I've been involved in Fritz Park from the very beginning, and just we've always envisioned having the other side of the floodplain to do stuff with the park. Is that going to be part of it? Is it going to be retention, pond retention? I seen one time there was pond retentions over there.
The short answer is I don't know. Only because we still have geotech studies and things to do to where we know exactly what kind of detention we're going to need on site. Are we going to reshape the detention, reclaim some land, or is it going to look much like it looks today? Again, this meeting is before that process is complete. But again, as we move forward, and to all the points, and the gentleman, I wish I caught your name.
Does the park still get the development fees for the apartments and so forth that goes towards the parks? Because of this development being?
Yes.
yes.
Yes?
Yes, ma'am, right here.
Somebody mentioned water, but I don't think we went into detail on what that's going to look like and the flooding and all that's already currently happening there. What's the plan, kind of eliminate some of that and make sure it doesn't get worse, or we rerouting?
We've got civil engineers studying it right now, but the current concept is we would have retention on the west side, east side, and the south side. It would be under drainage, under all the fields, so a lot of that division would be around there, and we pipe one of those retention areas so that it's all managed on site.
So if there's a barrier, and I'm not an engineer or construction, but if there's a barrier there, how does that impact the current flooding that we have? Is it gonna push over here, or is it gonna, like, you're taking care of what you have over here, so what does that do for?
I don't know what the current situation is, all I can say.
I'm the resident on that street with Ron, right there.
So
we currently have.
the development can cannot negatively impact you where you are, something that's already existing. So we will tie into and make sure that that is being taken into consideration, that we're not, and I understand what you're saying, if we're putting a wall between y'all and us, is it gonna stop the water? We're not going to stop water into your neighborhood and it's gonna stay over there and we're gonna be over here. We will do all of the drainage and all of the study to pull all of that out. And we cannot, their development cannot negatively impact you. The law doesn't allow it. We wouldn't allow it. And our engineers and our wastewater and public works would definitely be working on that. Inspections would be making sure that y'all do not have any additional, if anything, it would provide for flood mitigation from what y'all are experiencing currently. Yes, okay.
So I have a question. So our house faces the back of our house, Limmer Loop is behind it. And with the addition of Heddle Highlands on the other side of Limmer Loop, and now people run into, with all the traffic on 79, everyone from Taylor, Rockville, that area, uses Limmer Loop as a bypass. So it's become almost a 79. And it's not only impacted the residents in Heddle, but it also affects the people that live like on Limmer Loop, the county out there. And I know part of that is county. Are y'all working with the Williamson County Sheriff to ensure that when all the construction vehicles start coming, that they're going to be monitored? I mean, speed is out of control on
Especially
Limmer Loop.
trying to turn off
And
of Carroll onto Lemon.
And there's a blind spot. So when they were building Heddle Highlands, the construction vehicles and trucks and 18-wheelers were using our neighborhood as a cut through. And so there is, the roads are cracked, terrible shape, nails in the tires, and we called and said, why are they not? And nothing was ever done. So I think that's our concern, is what's gonna happen with that. And have y'all been working with TxDOT to get a light maybe at Limmer and Carroll, because you can't even see.
Because there's a privacy fence blocking your
Yeah,
view
there's a fence.
in the
There
house.
needs to be
And
something
the
happening right there.
Right where that curve is right there.
And then the truck, where they have the trucking facility, they
So certainly, as we mentioned before, as we get through that construction process, and the police chief being here and hearing these concerns of speeding and.
We do directed patrol on Limmer a lot because we do receive a lot of complaints on there. You can't have officers there all the time. We put the trailers up there, it slows them down. As soon as you move the trailer, they speed up again. So then the officers go out there and work as often as they can.
And we know it's not,
Yeah.
it's not citizens of it.
But bringing-
it's people coming in, using it as
Survey.
a shortcut to go around.
And two things that I want to mention, and bringing that to the attention right now is certainly something that will allow us to make sure that we focus on that. The Highlands piece, the access to that development was directly off the Limmer. We will have different construction access, so now that's not to say that may not be access off the Limmer, but in looking at this, we are definitely taking that into consideration. We also are working with the county as well as TxDOT on a lot of, not specifically that road, but giving them our entire, here's where we are, and we are about to experience some considerable growth, and we need to look at what options. So knowing that request for that light, all of that, will take that down and make sure that that is included in moving forward what we're looking at.
And then at Carroll Drive.
And with our growth, we're gonna be looking at regardless of this project. I mean, that part of the town is going to be growing. So we are aware.
Street to 79.
So Carroll,
Carroll sounds like a terrible idea.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Carroll
No.
doesn't go all the way through the
Right here, that's gonna go all the way through
It
to 79.
stops,
Yep,
it
that's
stops at Major
that's
right now.
just massive traffic.
That's gonna be bad.
That would be my
I mean,
next
children walk to school on Carroll.
It stops.
No, it stops at Major.
Carroll stops at Major.
Currently, it stops at Major.
Yeah, so there would be an entrance to the facility here, so we'll look at that. Now
Yeah.
we've got Ron, I'll get
That's
with you
gonna
and
directly
we'll touch base
affect
during
children
one of that.
walking to
But I have one quick question also. I know what 18-wheelers do the roads, especially when they're loaded down with this. Is there any way that Major Lane can be blocked where they can't use Major Lane during construction? Because we got an elementary school there, and those roads get tore up. And it's a question, because that's a little bitty road that gets, I think his name is Benji that owns the trucking place, his trucks are tearing it up already.
I think that's something that we had an earlier question on, so we
Right.
certainly wrote that down as an option to look into.
Yes.
once the trucks are done.
Yeah, we can control where the trucks come in and out, because we can make that part of the traffic plan if they have to turn in, or how the trucks are gonna enter and exit. So, I mean,
Thank you, so that'd be good.
So, I think yes, sir.
I just want to piggyback on the thoroughfare from Carroll Drive.
Okay.
If you have a concern about that, I just on Carroll. And then the second thing would be the height on the residential building next to elementary school. What does that look like?
Okay.
What they were talking about, 6 to 8 story buildings.
It'd be 3 or 4 stories.
Yeah.
Fire trucks, do we have fire trucks that can?
Oh, yeah, fire is
Oh, yeah.
good. They're ready for this. They're excited.
So I'd like to turn this over now, let y'all come up, take a look at the site plans, ask any of our experts that are here to kind of, if our perfect game representatives and our representatives from Legacy will stand up. If y'all have questions, if y'all would like to discuss anything with staff or with any of these folks, then please do. And those of you who have more questions, please come find us. Otherwise, thank y'all. We're going to pull all this together, and any of you that signed up for information will be emailing you a link to the contact page.